Okay, so before we get started, everybody knows that midterm grades are posted, right? That's all up. Most of you are doing just fine. If you are not doing just fine, you'll probably be hearing from me about it, but by and large, I wouldn't worry too much. There are one or two people whose current grade might be, say, a D, but the D's are very close to C's at this point. A lot of the C's are very close to B's, and some of the B's are actually very close to A's, right? So you still have, at this point, 55 points in the class that you can possibly earn. Not only that, but your participation grade does not necessarily have to remain what it is now, right? So if you up your participation, that gets you more points. If you make sure that you do well on the final exam and the final paper, that gets you more points. And I'm also going to give you the opportunity to revise the first paper. Right? You have a week to do it, so it's going to be due next Tuesday. Go into Georgia View, look at the feedback box, look at the comments I left, and if you revise the paper according to those comments, you can increase your score by up to 1 full letter grade. Right? I say up to because I make no guarantees as to how much your grade will go up. Right? It's going to depend on the quality of the revisions you do. Worst case scenario, you do the revisions and you don't get any points. Right? Even if you actually made the paper worse, your grade won't go down. So worst case scenario if you do the revisions is you just don't get extra points. Best case scenario, you get up to 1 full letter grade, right? So you work that D up to a C, you work that C up to a B, right? Even if you have, say, like an A minus, it's still worth doing because it will be more points. There are only 100 points total in the class, and even getting that 1 extra point gives you an edge. So, let me also be clear about what I mean by revision, right? By revision, I don't mean editing. I don't mean going through the paper and fixing grammatical mistakes or spelling errors, right? By revision, I mean rethinking and improving your thesis, your structure, your use of evidence, right? Basically rethinking the paper. In some cases, this may require a lot more extra work, right? A lot more restructuring. And I am happy to help people out if you found any of my comments cryptic or confusing, or if you just want me to, say, look at another draft of the paper before you turn it in again. Does anybody have any questions about this? No? Last chance? Okay, great. So I hope to see some revisions from everybody next week. Right, so let's jump into the material for today then, right? So pardon my little brain fart last week. Right, so we're jumping back to Faust today. Are any of you familiar at all with the Faust legend? Do you know anything about the Faust story?
Yes.
Okay, Ashley, what do you know about the Faust story?
There's this really super angry scholar that wanted to find out everything he could, but he feels like science had failed him. So basically he went, well, science has failed me, like logical reasoning has failed me. I'm going to make a pact with the devil. Maybe that'll be cool.
Yeah. In the conventional Faust story, right, yeah, right, a scholar who is fed up with conventional learning because it can't help him penetrate life's deepest mysteries. So yeah, so he makes a pact with an agent of Satan. He said, okay, so you will serve me and answer all of my questions for a period of years. And in return, I give you my soul. And the usual pattern of the story is that the devil who serves him pretends to answer questions, but the answers he gets are still very kind of surface level, right? The answers that he wants, the answers that Faust wants to the questions of existence they can't be answered. So the devil sort of lures him into sensual pleasures and nasty little tricks for the remaining period of years, and then Faust is dragged screaming off to hell. So happy, cheerful story, right? Now, the Faust story is actually based, we think, on a real person. There's a 16th century German alchemist by the name of Johann Georg Faust, who we think lived from about 1480 to 1541. We think, based on records at the University of Heidelberg, that he was a student there at one time. He seems to have held a few university posts. But seems to have spent most of his life as a sort of itinerant conjurer, alchemist, and all-around snake oil salesman and quack. Right? There are lots of records of this guy Faust showing up in different towns in Germany and promising people miracle cures for things, and then disappearing when those cures don't work. Right? So the basic pattern of the traveling charlatan. And we think he was killed in an alchemical explosion in 1541. We know very little about this individual. There's very little reliable information out there. What contributes to his everlasting fame is the fact that shortly after the year in which he was supposed to have died, there start appearing all over Germany these cheap publications called chapbooks, called Faustbücher. Literally translated from German, Faustbücher means, can you guess?
Faust book?
Yeah, Faust books. And the Faust books, the Faustbücher, present the usual narrative outline that subsequent versions of the Faust tale follow, right? It's the Faustbücher that add the idea of the pact with the devil. It's the Faustbücher that add, scenes of Faust riding on a barrel out of a tavern after tricking the patrons out of their money. Faust putting antlers on a knight who has offended him, turning bales of straw into horses, turning people into animals, things of this nature. And then, of course, being dragged screaming off to hell. Right? The ending perhaps suggested by the actual historical Faust's fiery death. So, late in the 16th century, an English playwright by the name of Christopher Marlowe adapts a play from one of these Faustbücher that has made it over to England, has been translated into English. The play is called The Tragical History Dr. Faustus?
Is tragical even a word?
Marlowe thought so. Yes, The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus. And this play is a huge hit in England, enormously popular, scares the crap out of people. There are reports, sort of urban legends, that suggest that in some of the early performances of the play, after Faustus performs the conjuration spell that's supposed to call up Mephistopheles, there was an extra devil on the stage, and so people freaked out and fled the theater.
So it was kind of like Macbeth, or the Macbethy curse kind of thing?
The play itself wasn't considered unlucky, but the material certainly made people very, very nervous. And it's like the same sort of thrill you get like today from watching a horror movie, right? You know that knife is going for the innocent camper's throat, right? But you don't know when or how exactly it's going to happen. So Marlowe's play, after it's a huge hit in England, gets translated into various European languages and is performed across the continent. It becomes very, very popular in Germany in the 17th century. And eventually, by the time Goethe is a child, it's performed only as sort of these sort of folk plays or puppet dramas. Right. In Goethe's autobiography, he recalls going to see, or begging his grandmother for money to go see the Faust puppet play at the village fair. So it becomes this sort of very simplified morality tale for simple peasants and their children. So what Goethe is trying to do is translate this story that he remembers from his childhood, these little puppets beating up on each other, into a work of high romantic art. Now, as far as this play itself is concerned, is there anything about it that struck you as weird for a play? Let me put it to you this way. How easy would it be to stage this play?
It didn't really rhyme, or at least that's what I didn't know.
Yeah, the language was different.
Okay, well, and
it was a translation from
yeah,
German,
we have to remember.
so.
Yeah, this is translation from the German. Yeah, so it's. Why would you think it would be easy to stage?
Well, okay, moving on. I'm starting to think more about it, and it seems very complicated now.
Okay, Casey, what were you gonna say?
I don't think it would be very easy because there's so many spirits and things. You have to have the proper Latin to actually pull it all off.
Yeah, you would need a crazy amount of special effects, right? Because Mephistopheles changes from a poodle into a human-like devil, right? We have the summoning of that earth spirit. We have the angels floating about and saying their bits. So that alone, like the special effects budget, would have to be enormous, right, in order to make this in any way convincing. Yeah, Allison, you had a hand up. What were you gonna say?
Right before it starts with Faust, it says in a narrow, high vaulted Gothic room. Which would be pretty hard to try to do in a switch.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, you would need a lot of different scenes, right? You would need a lot of different set pieces in order to actually perform this play. And as you said, like some of these would be really hard to reproduce on a stage. What else would make this really, really hard to produce? Yeah, Chris.
A lot of the lines are very long speeches.
Okay, yeah, so it would be exhausting for your actors, right? It would be very taxing for the actors. And speaking of the actors, how many actors would you need?
1 billion.
Yeah, you'd need dozens, right? You would need a very, very large cast to put this play on. So yeah, the production difficulties would be enormous. In fact, if you take Faust Part 1 and Part 2, we're only looking at Part 1 over the course of a week. If you take Part 1 and Part 2 together, the entire piece would take 20 hours to perform.
Gross.
So they'd have to split it up into a few days.
Probably, or else you are really trying the patience and goodwill of your audience. Now, what else might just the sheer length and unwieldiness of this play suggest? Do you think this play was actually written with performance in mind?
No.
It feels like he tried to write a book but in script form.
Yeah, this is actually an example of a fairly common romantic genre called closet drama. And closet drama isn't really meant to be performed. It's meant to be read. Now, it can be read aloud by a group of people sitting together in a drawing room or something, right? Hence closet drama. But it's not really intended for stage performance. Now, some of the reasons this genre arises are practical, right? In the early 19th century, it was often difficult to get theater licenses in various places in Europe, and expensive to do so. So people who wanted to write plays said, well, the hell with it. I don't actually have, no one's ever going to perform my play. Why should I bother sticking to the conventions of, a traditional proscenium stage, right? I don't have to. I'm just going to write what I want and let people read it.
So it's like the equivalent of fan fiction? Or
No, not really. See, fan fiction is a really very contemporary sort of idea, right? And we often use that word in a kind of denigrating kind of way. I think one thing that we do have to remember about past generations is that concepts of originality have changed quite a bit. Most earlier generations of writers, like particularly sort of pre-mid-19th century, didn't invent their own plots or their own characters. They used pre-existing materials. It's actually the Romantics who really start insisting on certain kind of originality and innovation, even when they don't always do it themselves. Fan fiction as a sort of not officially sanctioned sideline of a particular property, like Lord of the Rings fan fiction or Star Trek fan fiction or whatever, right? That sort of thing wouldn't really have existed, and they certainly wouldn't really have thought of this as like Faust fan fiction. But that is actually, it's an interesting analogy. So it might help if we think a little bit about Romanticism and what its aims and goals were. So if we think back to Rousseau, we talked about Rousseau's Confessions. What were some of the key features of Romanticism as a literary movement?
And emphasize your feelings and emotions.
Okay, yeah, feelings and emotions, good. More important than thought, right? I felt before I thought. What else? What else is important in Romanticism?
Nature.
Okay, yeah. A lot of nature imagery. In particular, nature as a spur, as an incentive to thinking, right? Nature is almost always, for the Romantics, a catalyst for thinking about something, right? You see the big, beautiful mountain and the great, big, beautiful waterfall, and it gets you thinking about your place in the universe, right? What else? What else do you remember about Romanticism? What sorts of things did Romantic writers and artists value?
The individual.
Yeah, individuality, good. I am an individual, just like all of my friends. What else? Did they believe in sticking to stock formulas or writing in the same meters, the same traditions that their forebears had? Now, one thing that they tended to prize, was innovation. Now, the general effects that a Romantic writer was going for is often referred to as the sublime. By and large, writers of the 18th century in Europe were concerned with giving their readers objects the mind could relatively easily grasp, right? They had a kind of universalizing impulse, right? Let's talk about the universal aspects of human nature, things that are common to everyone. The Romantic focus on the individual and on certain kinds of nature imagery, however, leads them down different roads. Now, does anybody know what is meant by sublime? What is the sublime? How is it different from, say, something we would think of as beautiful? Okay, I'm going to give you a mid-18th century definition of the sublime, and then we're going to see if we can boil it down into contemporary English. So this is from A Philosophical Inquiry into the Origin of Our Ideas of the Sublime and the Beautiful by Edmund Burke. Whatever is fitted in any sort to excite the ideas of pain and danger, that is to say, whatever is in any sort terrible, or conversant about terrible objects, or operates in a manner analogous to terror, is a source of the sublime, that is, it is productive of the strongest emotion which the mind is capable of feeling.
So it's like being an adrenaline junkie?
Adrenaline is probably not quite the right word for it, but it's what emotions is the sublime supposed to excite, according to Burke? When he talks about
Fear.
that, fear is one, yeah. What else? Did I hear somebody say something else?
Disgusting one?
Not really. When he says about things that are terrible, right? Things that excite terror, he's not necessarily thinking specifically about like terror the way we would think of it, right? Terror as a kind of feeling, he is thinking of terror as a kind of feeling of threat or a personal threat, but it doesn't work in quite the same way, right? It's not something that's excited by something that's disgusting. So an example of the sublime would be in the natural world, say, you're standing at the bottom of Victoria Falls, or at the bottom of Mount Kilimanjaro, right? How do you feel? Tiny, yeah. The sublime is that which reveals to you your own smallness and insignificance. So the feelings it inspires are feelings of fear and awe. The sublime is that which is too large for the mind to take in. You can't quite process it. You can't quite make sense of it. It's too big. Examples in sort of like the man-made world would be, say, like the Great Pyramids, or some of like those giant ancient Egyptian statues of Ramesses II, right? Where you just, you stand underneath it and you're just dwarfed by it. It's like, oh my God, this thing is huge. The sublime terrifies us by making us feel our own relative insignificance and our own relative smallness in a much larger world. So what does this have to do with closet drama? Well, what is closet drama? Like, if you're not worried about staging it, what can you do with a play? You can make it as unrealistic and as huge as you want, right? Yeah, the aesthetic of Romanticism generally is an aesthetic of enormity, right? Of hugeness. How big this world we live in is, right? How tiny it makes us feel. But that feeling of tininess, that feeling of threat, is itself exhilarating, is itself exciting. Does this make sense to everybody? Okay, and yeah, we have here a play that really does it, at the very least, in this part, span most of Germany. And indeed, other parts of the universe as well. So let's actually look at that prologue in heaven for a moment. And I'd like to start with 3 volunteers if I could. I need 3 archangels. So anyone who's feeling particularly pure and celestial today. All right, Ashley, Brittany, and Macy. All right, so Ashley, you'll be Raphael. Brittany, you'll be Gabriel. And Macy, you'll be Michael.
Okay.
Starting on page 102, very beginning.
Okay. The sun sounds out of his ancient measure in contest with each brother's fear, marching round and around with steps of thunder. His appointed circle year after year to see him lends us angels strength. But what is he? What he is, oh, who can say? The inconceivably great works are great, as on the first creating day.
And swift as all conception swift, the jeweled globe spins on its axis tree, celestial brightness alternating with shuddering night's obscurity. Against the rock-bound world, the sea is backwards seething hurled, and rock and sea together hurtle with the eternal turning world.
And tempest vying how and right, from sea to land, from land to sea, linking in tremendous circuit a chain of blazing energy. The lightning bolt makes ready for the thunderclap a ruinous lay, yet Lord your servants most prefer the stiller motions of your day.
From seeing this we draw conspiracy, and what you are, who you say, and all your great works are as great, and on the first creating day.
All right, thank you very much, all 3 of you. Very well done. Okay, so if we take these angel speeches together, do you notice a common thread that runs through each of them? What are they describing?
Creation.
Yeah, okay, creation. How are they describing creation? In what kind of terms?
The world.
Pardon?
The world isn't like how Earth works.
Yeah, this is how everything works together, right? And how does everything work?
Together.
Yeah, all of these things are linked together in a rationally ordered way, right? The sun sounds out his ancient measure, right? So the sun goes in its appointed course, right? The world spins upon its axle tree the way it's supposed to, the way it's designed to. And even, these destructive forces of storm and lightning, right? They operate in a circuit, right? In an organized fashion. So what kind of picture of the universe do we get from these angels?
Organized chaos maybe.
Yeah. This is an orderly universe, right? Even the chaotic bits, or the bits we would think of as chaotic, all ultimately are part of the grand plan and serve some sort of divine purpose. Now, philosophically, what would we relate this to? What philosophical school that we discussed earlier in the term does this sound a lot like?
You know what?
Heidelberg.
Pardon?
Heidelberg.
No. Heidelberg's a place, pardon? Yeah, it's the system that Leibniz bases his kind of optimism on, right? What we've got here is a kind of rationalism. Right? Everything has a place in the celestial order, and everything operates according to its place in that order. Can that order be fully explained, though, according to these angels? And this is what sounds particularly Panglossian or Leibnizian about it, right? Is that, yeah, there is some order, some purpose, but that purpose is concealed from everyone but the Creator himself. Now then we get this argument, relatively cordial argument, right, between Mephistopheles and the Lord. So can I get 2 more volunteers? Can I get a Mephistopheles and a Lord? All right, yeah. Sarah, go ahead and read Mephistopheles. James, you go ahead and read the Lord. And just start from where the 3 angels left off.
Lord, since you've stopped by here again, liking to know how all of us are doing, for which we're grateful, and since you've never made me feel de trop, well, here I am too with your other people. Excuse, I hope, my lack of eloquence, though this whole host, I'm sure, will think I'm stupid. Coming from me, high-sounding sentiments would only make you laugh. That is, provided laughing was a thing your worship still did. About suns and worlds, I don't know beings. I only see how mortals find their lives pure misery. First little gods shaped out of the same old clay. Here's the same queer fish he was on the first day. He'd be much better off, in my opinion, without the bit of heavenly light you dealt him out. He calls it reason, and the use he puts it to act more beastly than beasts ever do. To me he seems, if you'll pardon my saying so, like a long-legged grasshopper, all of whose leaping only lands him cracking the grass and chirping the tune he's always chirped. And if only he'd stay put in the grass. But no, an absolute need with him to creep and crawl and strain and sweat and stick his nose in every pile of dirt.
Is that all you have got to say to me? Is that all you can do? Accuse eternally? Is nothing ever right for you down there, sir?
No, nothing, Lord. All's just as bad as ever. I really pity humanity's myriad miseries. I swear I hate tormenting the poor ninnies.
Okay, stop there for a second. We'll come back to it. What does Mephistopheles' first long speech here have to say about all of this celestial order, all of this rationally organized cosmos? What does the angels' speeches leave out? What essential element in creation?
Death, maybe? Misery?
Well, who experiences death and misery?
On
Yeah.
earth.
The angels don't mention people at all. They talk about the glory of the sun, the earth, the storms and the seas, but there's no talk of people. And that's what Mephistopheles seems to be primarily interested in here, right, is people. About suns and worlds, I don't know beings, right? So, lovely organized cosmos you've got here, I don't care, right? This makes no difference to me. I only see how mortals find their lives pure misery. So what Mephistopheles' speech represents here is a challenge to this celestial order. Right. As lovely and well organized as your cosmos is, Lord, it does not make the lives of human beings any better or any easier. Right? Rationalism, the philosophical school itself, is based on what essential principle?
Everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason, right? And that we can determine how things are supposed to work, how they're supposed to happen, by using our reason, right? Earth's little god shaped out of the same old clay. He's the same queer fish he was on the first day. He'd be much better off, in my opinion, without the bit of heavenly light you dealt him out. He calls it reason, and the use he puts it to act more beastly than beasts ever do. So, according to Mephistopheles, is man using the heavenly gift of reason to plumb the deeper mysteries and to live in harmony with the universe. All this great harmonious universe. Now, human beings are the chaotic elements in this orderly universe, right? Because you can't predict what they're going to do or how they're going to use their reason. All right, so let's continue then from Do You Know Faust?
Should I go?
Yep, go for it.
Do you know Faust?
The doctor?
My good servant.
You don't say. Well, he serves you, I think, very clearly. Finds meat and drink to cool, and nothing earthly. Drives madly on. There is in him such a torment. He himself is half aware he's crazy. Heaven's brightest stars he imperiously requires, and from the earth its most exciting pleasures. And all that's near and at hand or far and wide leaves your good servant quite unsatisfied.
If today his service shows confused, disordered, with my help, he'll see his way clearly forward. When the sapling greens, the gardener can feel certain flower and fruit shall follow in due season.
Would you care to bet on that? You'll lose, I tell you, if you'll give me leave to lead the fellow gently down my primrose path.
As long as Faustus walks the earth, I shan't, I promise, interfere. While still man strives, still he must err.
Okay, pause there again for a second. This particular line here, right? While still man strives, still he must err. This is a particularly romantic sentiment, right? Capital R romantic. Right, the romantic hero is often a striver against human limits. Right, the hero of a romantic text often pushes back against the constraints placed on him by nature or by society. So, does this text so far, in this little argument between the Lord and Mephistopheles, does it seem to present human striving as a good thing?
No.
While still man strives, still he must err. What does this mean? If you're striving, if you're struggling to make sense of existence, to transcend normal limits, right, is this an easy thing to do?
No.
Probably going to encounter an error or two on your way trying to figure it out.
Yeah, you're probably going to make a lot of mistakes, right? But the fact that you're making mistakes means that you're still trying. So, while still man strives, still he must err. Right? The Lord actually approves of the striving in the way Goethe sort of frames him here, right? All right, go ahead, keep going, continue. Mephistopheles, well, thanks, Lord.
Well, thanks, Lord, for it's not the dead and gone I like dealing with. By far, what I prefer are round and rosy cheeks. When corpses come knocking, sorry, master's left the house. My way of working's the cat's way with the mouse.
So it's agreed. You have my full consent. Divert the soul of Faust from its true source, and if you're able, lead him along. Hell bent with you upon the downward course, then blush for shame when you find you must admit, impelled in this direction. Then in that one, a good man still knows which way is the right one.
Of course, yet I'll seduce him from it soon enough. I'm not afraid I'll lose my bet, and after I've won it, you won't, I trust, begrudge me. My lips of triumph, shouts of victory. Dust he'll eat and find that he enjoys it, exactly like the old aunt of mine, the famous snake.
There too, feel free. You have carte blanche. I've never hated you like so much. I find of all the spirits of denial, you jeers not my severest trial. Man's very quick to slacken in his effort. What he likes best is Sunday peace and quiet. So I'm glad to give him a devil for his own good, to prod and poke and incite him as the devil should. But you are God's true and faithful progeny. Delight in the world's wealth of living beauty. May the force that makes all life forms to evolve enfold you in the dear confines of love, and the fitfulness, the flux of all appearance, by enduring thoughts giving enduring forms to its transience.
The heavens close, the archangels withdraw. Yeah, go ahead.
I like to see the old man now and then, and take good care I don't fall out with him. And how very decent of a Lord Celestial to talk man to man with the devil of all people.
So why is it that the Lord is able to have this cordial conversation with the devil? The spirit of denial. The spirit who calls into question every element of rational, orderly creation.
Because he does it all in order, right?
Well, is it true that Mephistopheles is completely outside of the celestial order?
No.
No.
Does he have
He's
a
in heaven, it looks like, talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like me.
Yeah, he's not. One thing to note is that he's not excluded from this gathering of angels. Yeah, Sydney.
So Mephistopheles, he's the devil in this?
Or a devil, anyway. Yeah, yeah. Do these spirits of denial still serve some purpose in this divine order?
Seems like they're trying to corrupt the people in the world still.
And if they are running around trying to corrupt people in the world, what does that mean? People have to do.
Overcome them.
They have to continue striving, right? So Mephistopheles himself, though he denies the validity of the celestial order, is a part of it and can't help but do the Lord's work in the way Goethe conceives this cosmos for the sake of this play, right? The devils themselves are part of the celestial order. Now, Romantic religion tends away from some of the tendencies of the Enlightenment. Does anybody remember what the primary Enlightenment's religious idea was, at least among educated people, philosophers? How did they conceive of God?
It was deism.
Deism, right? Yes. And what's deism?
God basically messed with the divine clockwork, got everything working, and then he stepped back and let everything do as it is.
Yeah. God is divine clockmaker. Right? The universe is perfectly organized, perfectly constructed device that has just been sort of left to run itself. Romantics, on the other hand, tend towards what's called pantheism. Does anybody know what pantheism is?
Is that like worshiping multiple gods or having?
No, that's polytheism. It's a different thing.
It's one God
Based on this story, would it be God having belief in his people following him? And strictly him, like overcoming things?
Multiple divine beings?
Not so much. It's not so much that there are multiple divine beings, but that there is divinity in everything. Right? A pantheist believes, essentially, pantheist, pan is the Greek word for all or everything. And theos is the Greek word for God. So a pantheist believes that God is everything and that everything is God. In this case, apparently, including the devils who can't help but do God's work, even when they're trying to work against him. Right? There's a line when Mephistopheles is speaking to Faust. He acknowledges this himself. Right, where is it? Let me just quickly find it. On page 128, around line 125, Faust commands Mephistopheles to name himself, to describe what he is. Right? Say who you are if you would. A humble part of that great power, which always means evil, always does good. So by helping mankind to strive, by working evil, Mephistopheles and his devils ultimately end up doing good. So, everybody still with me? Okay. So once we get out of this conversation in the heavens, this argument between God and the devil, what situation do we find Faust in when we first meet him?
He's at his house just ranting about how he wants to know more and learn more. That he feels like he already knows everything there is and that there's more out there for him.
Yeah. Has any of this learning got him anywhere or satisfied his real cravings? Right, yeah. Page 105, right, in his narrow, high-vaulted Gothic room. I've studied, alas, philosophy, law and medicine, recto and verso, and how I regret it, theology also, how, oh God, how hard I've slaved away, with what result? Poor foolish old man, I am no whit wiser than when I began. I've got a Master of Arts degree, on top of that a PhD, for 10 long years, around and about, upstairs, downstairs, in and out. I've led my students by the nose with what results? That nobody knows, or ever shall know, the tiniest crumb, which is why I feel completely undone. Of course, I'm cleverer than these stuffed shirts, these doctors, MAs, scribes, and priests. I'm not bothered by a doubt or a scruple. I'm not afraid of hell or the devil. But the consequence is my mirth's all gone. No longer can I fool myself. I'm able to teach anyone how to be better, love true worth. I've got no money or property, worldly honors or celebrity. A dog wouldn't put up with this life. So what has he not gained through his studies?
Money.
Okay, yeah. He has not gained money or property. His studies haven't made him any richer, have not increased his material prosperity. What else has he not gained?
Wisdom.
What do we mean by wisdom?
He feels like he hasn't gained any actual real life experience. He has knowledge, but there's nothing he can apply.
Okay, yeah, no real experience. And what else has he not learned from his studies? No longer can I fool myself. I am able to teach anyone how to be better. Love true worth.
Oh, he hasn't taught himself how to live.
Yeah. Love, kindness, morality, yeah, none of these things have come to him through study either. So, I'm not any richer, I have no life experience, and my studies have not improved my moral character either. Nor have they improved my ability to judge others' moral character or to impart morals to others. Which is why I've turned to magic, seeking to know, by ways occult, from ghostly mouths spells difficult. So I no longer need to sweat, painfully explaining what I don't know anything about, so I may penetrate the power that holds the universe together, behold the source whence all proceeds, and no more torture, words, words, words. So he's turned to what? To try. Well, yeah, not the devil here yet, but he has turned to the occult, right? Now, in the popular American imagination, we tend to associate those two with each other, right? That all occults, anything, ultimately goes back somehow to Satanism. This is part of a particular American psychological cultural pathology. I remember when I was a kid in the 80s, the entire nation seemed to be firmly convinced that Satanists were running around kidnapping children. Major news programs were running stories on this. They weren't, right? It wasn't happening, but there was this kind of bizarre moral panic about it. The magic that Faust is talking about, when Faust is discussing the occult here, he's talking about other systems, right, that don't necessarily rely on direct contact with the devil. In the Faust legend, Faust usually goes straight to Satan for this information, but Goethe is revising this story a little bit. For Goethe, the occult is coming more out of traditions like alchemy, a Jewish mystical system called the Kabbalah, and a medieval and Renaissance system called Hermeticism. Now, really what all of these systems are about are sort of improving your own state, purifying your own state through the acquisition of deeper and deeper secrets, deeper and deeper knowledge, right? So alchemy, for example, what do we associate most with alchemy? What do alchemists try to do? Or what did they try to do?
Live forever.
That was one thing they tried to do, right? They tried to live forever, find the elixir of life. What's the other thing that alchemists were famous for trying to do?
Transmute random things into gold.
Yeah, trying to turn lead into gold, base metals into gold. Now, both of these things are actually metaphors for what the alchemist's real purpose was, right? If you can transmute lead into gold, right, you remove everything that's impure in the gold, or in the lead. It'll turn into gold. If you remove everything that is impure, that is corrupt, that is weak in the human character, you achieve some kind of transcendence. So the goal of an alchemist is actually transcendence of human limits. That's why Faust is turning to these particular philosophical systems. Right? This is what is leading him to turn to magic, right? I can't get the transcendent knowledge that I want from conventional sources. They can't tell me enough. So I'm fed up with words, and I'm going to go to other sources. And then we see him sitting here in his study trying out a variety of these other sources. Right? After words on page 106. O full moon, melancholy bright, friend I've watched for many a night, till your quiet shining circle appeared above my high-piled table. If only you might never again look down from above on my pain. If only I might stray at will in your mild light high on the hill, haunt with spirits upland hollows, fade with you in dim-lit meadows, and soul no longer gasping in the stink of learning's midnight oil, bathe in your dews till well again. So, does he actually head straight into magic from his complaint here? What's his first proposed solution to his melancholy? What might cure his spirits?
Becoming one with nature?
Yeah, just a walk in the moonlight, right? Yeah. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to walk in the moonlight. Commune with spirits of the night, and that will make me feel better. So he first posits some mystical connection with nature. That will help him out. Now I'm going to step out of the room for a minute. I want you to just read the next verse paragraph there and figure out how and why this for him is an inadequate solution. Okay, I'll be right back. with that. So, what have we come up with? Why is communing with nature not going to work for Faust?
He seems like no matter what, he'll be dissatisfied.
Well, what is it that he actually sees around him? Okay, yep. Books, papers, devices, right? All of this scholarly apparatus, right? And just seeing these things, all this parchment all over the place. He seems to really, really hate books and parchment, right? Drags his spirit down. So he feels sort of hemmed in by all of his scholarly apparatus. Instead of nature's flourishing garden, God created a man to dwell there. Rubbish, dirt are everywhere. Your gaze turns old bones a skeleton. Off to the open countryside, and this mysterious book inscribed by Nostradamus' own hand. What better help to master the secrets of how the stars turn in their orbits? From nature, learn to understand the spirit's power to speak to spirits. Sitting here and racking your brains to puzzle out the sacred signs, what a sterile, futile business. Spirits, I feel your presence around me. Announce yourself if you hear me. He opens the book, and his eye encounters the sign of the macrocosm. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that none of you have any idea what the hell the sign of the macrocosm is, right? Okay, this actually comes out of these Renaissance magical traditions like Hermeticism. The sign of the macrocosm is a symbol of universal harmony, right? A symbol of how everything in the universe is connected, how it all works together. So it looks something like this. Right, you got a circle. Inside the circle is a 5-pointed star. And at each point of the star corresponds to some part of the human body. Right? So in general, this would be let's give him a little beard too, why not? This would be much more artfully done in one of these actual Hermetic books, but as we have by now determined, I'm an incredibly shitty artist. So this is the best I can do. So this is the sign of the macrocosm. And each of these points on the star also corresponds to some element. Spirit at the head, water, fire, earth, and air. So this is supposed to indicate how all elements in the universe are harmonized with each other and with human existence, with the human body as well. The pure bliss flooding all my senses, seeing this. Through every nerve and vein I feel youth's fiery, fresh spirit race again. Was it a god marked out these signs, by which my agitated bosom stilled? By which my bleak heart's filled with joy? By whose mysterious agency the powers of nature all around me stand revealed? Am I a god, all's bright as day? By these pure tracings I can see at my soul's feet great nature unconcealed. And the sage's words, I understand them finally. The spirit world is not barred shut, it's your closed mind, your dead heart. Stand up unappalled, my scholar, and bathe your breast in the rose of aurora. He contemplates the sign. How all is woven one, uniting, each and the other living, working, right? All things connected, everything together. How heavenly powers rise, descend, passing gold vessels from hand to hand, on wings that scatter sweet-smelling blessings everywhere they post in earth, and make a universal harmony sound forth. Oh, what a show! But a show, nothing more. How infinite nature lay hold of you, where? Where find all your life-giving fountains, breasts that sustain the earth and the heavens, which my shrunken breast yearns for with a feverish thirst. You flow, overflow, must I keep on thirsting in vain? So ultimately, what is this symbol of the macrocosm? Right? He feels at first like it's revealing all of these things to him, all of these secrets of creation, right? These angels sharing golden vessels with each other and all this crap, right? What else? What is it really?
Pentagram, right?
Well, yeah, there's a pentacle inside of it, but it's not the satanic pentagram, right? It's not the same thing. The satanic pentagram is usually inverted, and this is because the traditional occult pentagram represents the human body. And so inverting that pentagram like its traditional values inverted. But yeah, this is not the same thing there. If we just think about the very nature of the thing though, right? Not what it represents. Not what it represents, just what it is. What is it? What is any symbol like this?
It doesn't represent like that's a word. Represent humanity or something?
Well, it is just a representation, right? It's just a picture. It doesn't actually bring him any closer to the things the picture represents. Right? He says it's just a show. That's it. It's not the real thing. Looking at the symbol of the macrocosm doesn't bring me any closer to communion with the divine or what have you. So next solution, morosely, he turns the pages of the book and comes on the sign of the spirit of earth. What a different effect this sign has on me. Spirit of earth, how nearer you are to me. Already fresh lifeblood pours through every vein. Already I'm aglow as if with new wine. Now I have the courage to dare to venture into the world and bear the ill and well of life, to battle storms when the ship splits not to tremble. So, nature mysticism didn't, just going for a walk in the moonlight didn't work. Sign of the macrocosm didn't work because it's just a picture. What's solution 3 here to Faust's melancholy?
Satan?
He's not actually trying to summon the devil here. When he talks about an earth spirit, right, he is talking about directly trying to access the knowledge of some elemental spirit, right? I'm going to call up a spirit of the earth, not a devil, an earth spirit's a different thing. And I'm going to question it, right? I'm going to get at the root of what this world is all about and how it's put together. And then what happens when he summons up the earth spirit?
Things start happening. To signify like something might actually be working.
Yeah, the earth spirit shows up, right? And how does he react to it?
He freaks out.
Yeah, it scares the hell out of him. Right? This thing is frightening. I shrink back from you in airy flame. I'm him, yes, Faust, your equal the same. So yeah, he summons up the earth spirit, it scares him, and it won't answer any of his questions, right? So, passive contact with nature, looking at representations of natural things, summoning up a nature spirit and questioning it, none of these get Faust to where he wants. So where does he proceed from here? It's the next thing that occurs to him once he's left alone. look on page 112. These high walls, every shelf crammed, every niche, dust is what shrinks them to a stifling cell. This moth-eaten world with its oddments and trash, it's the reason I feel shut up in jail. And here I'll discover what it is that I lack, and here devour thousands of books so as to learn, shall I? Mankind has always been stretched on the rack, with now and then somebody, somewhere who's been happy. Your empty skull there, smirking, so I know why. What does it tell me if not that your brain, whirling like mine, sought the bright sun of truth, only to wander, night bewildered, in vain? Why does he settle on a skull as the object of his reveries now?
Maybe because he feels like the only way he's going to find out the answers to his questions is if he dies.
Yeah, he's contemplating suicide now. And all that apparatus you mock me, you laugh. With your every wheel, cylinder, cog, and ratchet, I stood at the door, sure you provided the key. Yet for all the bit's cunning design, I couldn't unlatch it. Mysterious even in broad daylight, nature lets no one part her veil, in which she keeps hidden out of sight. All your levers and wrenches can't make her reveal. You, ancient stuff I've left lying about, you're here. And why? My father found you useful. What do we know about Faust's father?
Like paternal father, or like father as in God?
His actual biological father.
He was a doctor.
Yeah. His father was a medical doctor. And how good a doctor was his father? Probably by the standards of the time, okay, right?
Yeah, he wasn't the worst.
But yeah, what are the actual medical standards of the time?
If you're knowledgeable enough to be a doctor, you're pretty smart. And people view you as high value human being.
Yeah, even though when you're going around curing plague, what are you actually doing? Yeah, trial and error, basically, right? You know, he talks in, you know, when they're going among the villagers, right, how they killed as many patients as they cured. They didn't know what worked. And the father's techniques are described as something really a lot closer, right, to alchemy or magic than what we would recognize as medicine. So as he's contemplating suicide here, he's also focusing on the burden of tradition and of inheritance.
So, and for lack of a better term, all of this is just boiling down to daddy issues?
It's not all boiling down to daddy issues. What it is boiling down to, though, is the value of traditional scholarship in general, right?
Yes.
That for the romantic striving hero, which is what Faust apparently seeks to be, all of these things just hem him in, right? Books, papers, learning, they're not actually helping him transcend this study that he's trapped in, right? So this is what magic is supposed to do for him. And yet he doesn't quite have the guts to make it work. So we're about out of time, so we'll pick this up next time. The second half of the play, you will see Faust in love, or at least in lust. Bless you. I have some reading questions for you. I have your exams to get back to you. And I'll see you on Thursday.